Welcome to episode 147 of the Left Behind Game Club. This week we play Into the Breach. Let's get right into it.
You're listening to the Left Behind Game Club.
Welcome to the Left Behind Game Club, our never-ending attempt to make sure that no game is left behind. I'm your host, Jacob McCourt, and today I have two friends with me. The first friend, you know him, you love him. His name is Mike Ruffalo.
I'm excited to talk about a very good game.
And here to talk about a very good game with us, his 17th time on this podcast.
He needs no introduction.
Travis Colenutt.
Hello.
I hear you like Into the Breach.
Oh my God. Like, you have no idea. I don't know how much I'm going to talk on this one, but good grief.
Well,
it's going to be a lot.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear all of your thoughts on it because I feel like I've dipped my toe in a game that you can, swim deeply in. Mm-hmm. And so I want to hear the perspective of someone who not only deeply loves this game, but has spent probably way more time than they want to admit.
Yep.
Great. We're talking about Into the Breach, developed and published by Subset Games. It's literally on everything: Switch, Linux, Mac OS, Windows, Google Stadia, and Mac OS Classic.
If it has a processor, you can play it.
Except on Xbox and PS4, PS5, weirdly enough. Anyway,
right.
Released on February 27, 2018. We start with the fast pitch, which is a one-sentence pitch about this video game. I gave you mine earlier, so I'm going to say it again for the folks listening. What if Independence Day, but chess?
Ooh.
Into the Breach.
Wow.
Interesting.
Thank you. For once, I'm prepared.
Yeah, that's a good one. I will go next.
Who's next?
I will go next, and I will say it's chess if you could swap out your piece at any moment in time. Which is not succinct, but it is how I feel about this game.
Travis, as our resident Into the Breach expert, please.
Literally, whenever I think of this game, I'm just like, there's so many T's that come to mind because it's Travis's top game, right? But also it's just terrific turn-based time travel tactics. It's just so beautiful.
Wow.
I love it.
Well done. I'm so excited to talk about this game. Before I ask you about your experience with tactics games, Travis, because I think you have a lot, just some games that were released around this game just to get you in the mood of 2018. Moss, the PSVR game, came out in the same month. Metal Gear Survive, which was the not good survival action game from Konami.
Is that the one where you could shoot the enemy and have them zeppelined back to your base or whatever? Is that the one?
That is both MGS5 and Metal Gear
Gotcha.
Survive. Metal Gear Survive is just like a game that was made without Kojima and was a survival game instead of a stealth
Gotcha.
game.
Is that the one that doesn't have the smoking monkey and a vampire?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
You got it.
That's how I
one.
segment the Metal Gear games in my head. Is there a smoking monkey? Is there a ninja with a blade? Is there a vampire?
Is there a poop joke?
Is there an arm that controls a human being?
Spoilers.
All the spoilers.
Here's the thing. You can hear all of that and still not know any of the craziness that exists in those games, right? Like, you could go in knowing that there's a vampire and a monkey that wears a diaper and still have no idea what happens in any of those games. Yeah, you could beat those games and still have no idea what goes on in them. So just, setting the table a bit.
How about an old man that dies during a boss battle? That's Metal Gear.
Press F to pay respects.
Travis, tell us about your experience with tactics games before we talk about Metal Gear Solid in a podcast not about Metal Gear.
I've always loved tactics games. They're pretty much puzzle games to me, right? Like, you're just solving a puzzle, right? I grew up being obsessed with Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. I think it's like for Game Boy Advance, and I played it on my SP, I think, forever. It was just something that I just constantly just put so much time and energy and effort and just so much into that game. And then, it's just always been one of those things that I can easily just pick up, put down, because I think it's the easiness of being able to just oh, it's my turn. I can just set this aside. There's no time limit. There's no pressing. Like, it's just, I can sit here and just think about stuff, and it just, I can shut my brain off, and this is just my nice little puzzle game. And so I've played a lot of them. There's a good handful of these games that I've played, and I didn't realize that I enjoyed them as much as I did until Into the Breach came out, and I was like, oh, this is like perfection. And I've become obsessed, and I
think you've actually recommended Tactics Advance to me multiple times.
I have
it. Jacob, please figure
out
a way.
You want my little cartridge? You can borrow it.
I mean, I already have Metroid Dread of yours that I haven't started
that's
yet.
True.
So, Mike, Tactics games, you play?
Yeah, I mean, like, I've played a bunch on the PlayStation. I played
like what?
I don't know, but
Tactics Ogre.
Oh my god,
that does
Disgaea.
I think Disgaea. Like, that's a childhood thing, right? Like, I would go to a Blockbuster and I would grab a new game every week off the shelf, and I'd give myself 1 week to complete it. And if I didn't, then hey, that game was never getting finished because it was time to move on to the next thing. So I just know if those games existed, I played them at least for a week straight, and in many cases, I completed them. Played the Advance Wars games, which feels like tactic games.
Yeah.
Love the XCOM games.
Yep.
Mario versus Rabbids.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
All of those. So, like the genre, like playing it. Although I feel like we all alluded to this. It feels way more chess than a typical tactics game.
Yeah. I think a lot of other tactics games typically you don't feel this puzzly, I think. Like I'm also playing Triangle Strategy, and that's it's like a puzzle, but it's not the same. This is much more puzzly, and there are pieces that you're moving around. So there's a different flavor to this, and yeah, I don't know. I'll have to get into it later, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like, and I'm going to say something very quickly, and if you guys want to jump on, please. I think it's because like it's far fewer pieces, and the levels are way shorter than like a Fire Emblem or an Advance Wars, and that's probably what makes it feel more chessy. You can get through a level in like 3 minutes if you're playing it
totally
well.
There's not a lot of turns.
No, it's beautiful. It's so quick.
Mm-hmm. And for someone with a newborn, I'm sure it's
that's exactly it. It's perfect for something like that, where you can just like pick it up, put it down, and like when I pick it back up again, even if something happened and it wasn't my turn, I can see what's gonna happen, and then it's just so fast. It's just so easy to pick up and put down. It's perfect for the Switch.
So I feel like obviously you're a new dad. I don't know if we established that.
Yeah.
And clearly this is a perfect game for new fathers.
Yes.
Did you play this well before you became a father? Was this a game you've been playing for a long time?
Yeah. So I don't even remember how I heard about it, because I must have seen some.
Was it a podcast? Was it Waypoint?
It might. You know what? It might have been Waypoint, because I think Danielle Riendo loved this game, and I was like, "This is a tactics game," and I kind of just listened a few times, and I looked into it, and this was the game that made me get a Steam account, because I had a garbage computer.
Oh,
I was like, I can't play anything on this computer, and I'm like, I've got to like. It was only out on on PC at the time when it originally came out, and I ended up getting a Steam account, buying this game, and hoping that it was going to work. I think I remember even being like telling Katie, the other host of the show, I was like, can my laptop play this? Because I don't know. And I put...
You have a junker.
Yeah.
Or had a junker.
I had a really bad... Yeah, it was a junk. It was a piece of junk. And I ended up doing that, and I played it, I think on Steam, I played it for... Do I tell you how much I played it for already?
Yes,
please.
On Steam, I played it for about 50 hours.
Okay.
But then, so I played it at launch. I loved it. I got obsessed with it. And then when it came out on Switch, I was like, I'm gonna buy this game again. And I don't usually do that. I don't pull a Jacob and buy it on multiple platforms. And
I love that we've short formed that.
You have to be proud of me, though, because we're playing Mutazione on the show, like, in the near future, and I checked every single platform that I own, including every PC game that I get free games on, and I didn't own it, so I didn't buy it.
I'm proud of you.
Oh my God.
I'm proud of you.
We call that growth where I'm from.
That is. Just a quick aside, Jacob, to help with that problem, you should get GOG Galaxy, which is what I've
heard,
used.
yeah.
And it's great. It tells you, do you have it on Game Pass? Is it in your Xbox library? Is it on Steam? Or is it in your Epic Game Store? Or is it on your GOG library? Or is it in itch.io? It quite literally pulls everything in together. It's fantastic.
It calls itch as well?
I'm pretty sure, because I've got a bunch of games on itch. And yeah, it's definitely surfaced some of those. I don't know if I added those manually or what, but yes, very good. Should help with your Jacobitis.
Downloading right now.
We got distracted.
Just quick.
50 hours.
Oh, no, yeah. So, yeah, then when it came out on Switch, and I think it's funny. I think we were I was on my honeymoon, and there was a Nintendo Direct I was watching on the plane on the way home or something, and I legit got so excited. It was announced at the end of an indie Nintendo Direct that it was coming to Switch that day, and I'm like, oh, this is perfect, and I went home immediately after my honeymoon and downloaded it for my Switch, and it was perfect and then I played it a bunch more, and then when you asked me if I wanted to be on this episode, I once again played it a bunch more, and it just never ends. I get very obsessed with this game, and I can just do one more little area, one more map, one more island, and I just, okay, I can just do this next achievement with this squad, and I just keep going. And so I think collectively I've put in about 145 hours.
Wow.
Across both of them.
That's a good amount of time.
Yeah, especially for a game that can be beaten in I don't know,
20 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just something that I just keep playing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I go back to it every so often.
Jacob, do you remember any of the marketing of this game when it came out?
No. I think it's worthwhile to say that this is I guess another game from the team that put together FTL. We played on the podcast, and it had that pedigree to it. So I don't really know if it needed memorable marketing, because it just was the next game from that team, from Subset. They've only put out 2 games before. So I think it just kind of rode those coattails. We played FTL on the show. We all loved it. And different game, same genre, I guess, but
yes,
entirely different game.
Yeah, I totally echo that. I don't remember any trailers or anything other than Into the Breach is the next game from the people who brought you FTL. You can get sucked into it in the exact same way. It feels a lot like chess. That was the mental model that I had from all the conversations that I had heard when it came out. I heard that it was very good. I heard that it was very addictive. And knowing how much time I had spent in FTL, I was like, okay, well, I don't have time for an addiction like this, so I will leave this on my backlog. And I think by the time I was ready to play it, I lucked out and got it for free as part of the free game of the week from the Epic Game Store.
Yeah, you're saying about the marketing. I looked up the launch trailer to see, I'm like, was it how would I have remembered hearing about this? And I looked up the launch trailer and I was like, well, this was fine. It wasn't I don't think if I would have watched that trailer, I would have been like, this is the game for me. I think it literally was just word of mouth. Probably hearing it on Waypoint Radio was a big thing. Just hearing how much they liked it. And then it was just something that I just looked into. I never had really gotten into anything that hadn't really, I mean, I obviously didn't do any PC gaming, right? So it was something that I was like, I think this is worth me checking out. And yeah, it was for sure.
I think for me, it was I probably had the same level of exposure to tactics games as Mike. He named a lot of the ones that I love. Advance Wars, Fire Emblem Three Houses is probably a top 25 game for me of all time. Nice. I've wanted to play the Banner Saga ever since Manglewart has been talking about it in the Discord. And so I came to this game having loved FTL and loving even XCOM 2, XCOM 1 I played on iPad. So I was like, okay, I played that on iPad, so I'm going to play this on Switch. And so I played it on Switch, and I think that if I think about, Travis has played it for, 10, 15 times more than all of us put together. I've maybe played it for 8 hours. I played it 2 hours when it came out on Switch and kind of bounced off just because I'm like, when you play a game and you're like, I'm not in the headspace for this right now. And because we played the podcast or had it for the podcast, I was like, oh, great. It's going to be a great opportunity to come back. And I'm glad that I did. I probably played it for another 6 to 8 hours. and really enjoyed it. Like played it on a plane for a certain amount of time, and I did beat it once, and I've tried multiple different mechs. But I think Travis is going to be the one to talk about all the different mechs because there's a lot.
There's a lot.
Sweet.
Mike, did you play it? You played it about as much as me, a little bit less, maybe.
Probably played about 10 hours, 15 hours, somewhere in there.
Perfect. I'm going to read off a couple reviews, and then we're just going to get right into it. Reviewed well. Game Informer gave it a 93 and said the result is a cleaner, tighter game than FTL and one that is more fun, strategically complex, and consistently rewarding. GameSpot gave it a 9 and said Into the Breach is a pristine and pragmatic tactical gem with dynamic conflicts that will inspire you to jump back in again and again and again. And Shack News, I found a -1. It was the only negative review, gave it a 7, and said for the asking price $14.99, Into the Breach is a pretty good buy if you're into strategy games. However, I don't think it'll convert anyone into falling in love with the genre. The gameplay is tight, but not sophisticated enough to warrant more than a few playthroughs. Once you've unlocked most or all the squads and tried out different mechs, it loses its appeal and doesn't retain that survival against all odds feel that FTL has.
I love that a 7 out of 10 is a -1. We really
That's
are
the
working
lowest
with,
you can go is a 7 out of 10.
We're really working with a 4-point review scale, a 7, 8, 9, or a 10.
Yeah, I had to dig the bottom of the barrel on that one. It's a shallow barrel. Travis, do you agree that it's... I think there's a lot of replayability here. And he says, try some of the different mechs, and you have to play a lot to get them.
Well, that's the thing. And I think I set myself my own goals, right? Like when you guys wanted me to play this again for the pod, I was like, well, I might as well 100% my Switch version.
Wow.
I just worked my way through all of the achievements. And so I can agree that once you've played the game, you've gotten the sense of how the game works, and you've beaten an island and you've played with a few of the different mechs, you may not find much replayability in that sense. But if you go with the achievements and you say, okay, well, I need to, I have to have 12 tiles on fire with the burning mechs, then that becomes your goal for that map. And you're like, oh, I didn't do it. But you also have to then manage, staying alive, keeping your mechs alive, not having the cities burned down, all these things. So you're throwing in other kind of things to make the puzzle more challenging, right? Now that I've completed all of the achievements on my Switch copy, do I need to go back to it? Probably not. But also, I haven't beaten it all on hard yet. So would I go back and do all of that? I've beaten it all on normal, but to do... I kind of set myself my own goals, right? You can do custom squads, you can do randomized squads, so that in itself presents different challenges too. So I can see where the basic level of the game is maybe a bit less sophisticated, but if you set yourself your own goals, it's a lot of fun.
Okay, well let's set up those basics. I think it's fair to say that this game is a grid-based tactics game, where you have a team of 3 mechs. And you have to protect an island as well as... it's really just defend the island and make your way through a set of levels till you get to a final boss and prevent the swarm of aliens that are taking over from taking over your planet, Mike.
Yeah, I'd say the premise is that these aliens are invading. They come up from the ground, and each zone has its own environmental effect. In some cases, the ground will fall out from underneath you. In others, random splashes of molten lava will come and attack. In others, it will get frozen or otherwise. But it all revolves around protecting the settlements that are there, because that's the source of your power, and making sure that you either eliminate or prevent the enemy aliens from taking down the targets that you have to defend. So it is a weird game of chess in that you've got 3 pieces that can move and can impact the board or the enemy pieces, but you are responsible for defending other pieces on the board that are stationary and that you have no ability to interact with, to play.
Yeah, and I would add to that, the one thing that kind of makes it different than other tactics games that you would normally play is that every enemy's movement is completely telegraphed. You know exactly what the enemy is going to do on the next turn. There's no chance. There's no luck involved. It's this enemy is going to shoot this projectile at this building, and you know that is going to happen. So it's now your job to solve the puzzle of how do I stop all of these enemies from destroying all these things. Sometimes you might have to hurt your own mech in order to protect a building. You might have to let a pilot die if, it's like, well, either I'm going to lose here or I let a pilot die. You sometimes have to, take damage in order to make sure that you don't take more damage on a different building or get a certain reward or a certain goal on that map. So the fact that everything is completely telegraphed is different. And I like that about this game is that there's no guesswork. It's completely, I know exactly what's going to happen. And so the fault is on me. If I'm not paying attention to the entire map, I'm the one at fault. If I didn't pay attention to that one bug that came up or me moving something shifted him into a position that then ruined something else, right? So you have to be smart and you sit there and you stare at the screen for a while in order to figure it out. Which I don't know if it's ruined other tactics games for me, but I definitely I like the idea that it's telegraphed and there's no chance involved. Or is my attack going to hit? No, my attack will hit and I don't have to worry about it, right?
It's really cool that with the telegraphing, it really builds you into the mindset of having to think 3 or 4 turns ahead.
Yes.
There's an optimal way to play every round.
Yeah.
There's an optimal move with the pieces that you're given to not take damage or to take damage in a more optimal way. So it's cool that by giving you that little bit of telegraphing, you're like, oh, okay, well, if that's what they're going to do this next turn, how do I prepare for the turn that's following? And how do I triage what's most important? Do I need to prevent more people from coming? Do I need to eliminate these guys? Is this one target that I can't allow them to hit? Do I need to go get this time pod first? Or can I just let the whole round go through without that being a thing?
So yeah, and to add to that, sometimes it feels like it's weird that this game, it's got roguelike elements in that the maps are generated differently every single time. You never face the same enemies in the same locations. What you might be experiencing, your mechs might be different, your weapons might be different. The pilots that you have assigned to different mechs that have different abilities might be different. But it's interesting that despite the fact that it is procedurally generated, and you would think that sometimes a game like that could maybe work against you, it always feels like there is an optimal path to defeat, to pass through a round. It's almost it's funny how the game does that. I don't know how it does that. It's very interesting, but the fact that you can't really get stuck. Sometimes you can. If you've lost your train a little bit ahead of time, you've lost it. But if you're playing optimally every single turn, it's really interesting that this game doesn't really screw you over.
Yeah, it's very much like a chess puzzle, and that they give you a board and then they say, okay, you can get mate in 3, right? Or show us how you complete this within this amount of time. And sometimes it's take no damage, and other times it's clear all the enemies. Whatever it is, they outline the different parameters you have to optimize within very cleanly.
And I would even say that there's those elements on the micro level that we're talking about, but also on the macro level, because on an island, so you have to go through multiple islands till you can get to the volcanic hive and take the aliens down. When you play through an island, let's say it's divided into 7 levels within the island, you don't have the time to go through all 7 levels.
Right.
You'll end up picking, depending on the path, I think the number's usually 5 or 6, sub-levels that you'll play within a world. And within that even, you have to make choices of, okay, do I need more power for my power grid where I'm going to play this type of level with this type of mission? Or am I going to play, this type of mission that has this reward? Because you get stars and, stuff for your power grid. The stars obviously can help you to get more items and power-ups and abilities, whereas the power grid, if you get your power grid damaged to 0, the game is over. That's when you hit game over.
Right. And then
I never, ever actually figured out how to efficiently use all of the, power or resources that I received at the end of each biome or zone.
Oh, the weapons and the pilots and stuff like that that you can buy?
I never understood cleanly what was the most bang for my buck, or what was a good deal. Like usually in like, trading card games or stuff like that, I'm able to look at it and be like, okay, I can reduce all value down to this and create some base level and then build up from there and be able to value something. I just was not able to figure that out with this game. So I was just making the moves that, honestly, I just tried a lot of different weapons. I prioritized weapons so I could understand what I liked the most. So the next run, I had a cleaner idea over which weapon I wanted or needed or was going to use.
And that's the thing, there's so many weapons that you're never even going to see all the weapons in one run. So like it's going to be completely random whether or not you get a ice beam or a teleportation thing, or it's going to be always different. Or the pilots that you might unlock in time pods, or but you can always buy little energy tanks to kind of power up your mechs, or just buy grid power to like make yourself have a better chance of not getting damage when the enemies attack the grid, right? So there's always these things that you're kind of balancing out between everything, and it's usually at the end of the game it's like its own, after you've beaten an island, it's its own little game in itself. Like, how do I spend all of my reputation to like, what is the best optimal path for this?
I want to bring in a question from the Discord. It comes from Adam Gumbert. Adam asks, what is your favorite team of mechs? I know we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but this question, I guess, specifically is for you, Travis, because you're the most experienced. Is the first selection of mechs the only one that's actually fun to use? Because that's how it felt to me. Lol.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so yeah, you have your original, like, the Rift Walkers. They're just, like, basic. They've got a few things that, but each set of mechs have so many different things that they can do and different abilities based on, what they're, this is how you are going to, get this. Like there's one that's all flame, and I find that one is very difficult. I have a hard time with the flame behemoths because they, you have to, there's not a lot of damage output. You're chipping away damage by having everything be on fire. And so you have to really just manage the enemies while they burn away. So it makes it challenging. But no, I would say, honestly, my favorite is at the end. You keep unlocking different mechs as you go. The end one is the hazardous mechs. And they are, they take damage when you, when to do your move, you take damage. So they're self-harm there. So but when you kill a Vec, I don't know if we mentioned the Vec is the name of the aliens. Yeah.
No, we had not.
Yeah. When you kill a Vec, you get you heal by 1. So you have one mech that is an acid mech that shoots acid, and acid will make any enemies take double the damage. So you have to strategically place that mech to make sure that you shoot something, then use the other 2 mechs to take the damage, and your mechs are dying, like your pilots are dying and coming back to life constantly with that one, and you're putting them in harm's way in hopes that they can then kill something to heal. And so it's more of like a game of playing with their health bars and trying to make sure that you've got it going. One of my best runs was, so you have this concept in mind of like taking the mechs and inflicting damage in order to heal, right? Yep. On one of my first islands, I got an item. There was an item that I could buy that was a self-destruct button, and that self-destruct button essentially blows up your mech. And it would it's kind of like in any other case, you would use this in a last case scenario, like, oh god, I have no other option. I'm just gonna send this mech into the fire and just blow them up and kill all the Vec in that area.
Because there might be a chance that like I save my power grid if I
kill myself to do these guys up. That's the thing, right? But by attaching the self-destruct to one of these mechs, so I attach it to the acid mech, that it's just this little tiny nano mech that just kind of floats around and shoots acid. It does nothing else. I attach the self-destruct to that, and it self-destructs, and then it kills everything, and then it heals itself. So it just becomes this insanely overpowered thing where I just send this bomb into like a crowd of aliens. It blows up, but because it blows up, it heals itself because it kills all the Vec around it. So it's right. So it's dirty. It's really, really dirty, but like I like it a lot.
But you love it.
Yeah,
You're a dirty
and
boy, Travis.
It's my top rated, like most saved, like it's my highest rated run that I've done out of it, just by being luck that those items that I picked up. So yeah, the hazardous mechs are fun, but there's also a super there's a secret squad that
secret squad that costs 25 coins.
There's a secret squad. You have in order to get the secret squad, you have to do all of the other achievements.
Wow.
But spoilers for the secret squad. I don't want to spoil it.
We're spoiling it. What are they?
15
how do
seconds
they
ahead.
work?
You actually get weaponized Vec. You get to play as like the beetle,
Cool.
the hornet, and I think the scarab or something like
That's
that.
very
And you
cool.
use those, and they're pretty much just weaponized Vec.
I want
that
the
you
floating
then
jellyfish.
Yeah, and you don't have pilots attached to them, so if they die, they just lose 25 experience, but they come back every round. So you don't have to worry about. And yeah, they're interesting, and so they're fun, and it's just like a nice little super secret squad to play with if you complete all of the achievements.
I enjoyed playing with the Zenith Guard. At first, I thought they were
Same.
difficult to play, but they felt like playing the rook in chess.
Oh yeah,
You know, a lot of straight lines, and as soon as I honestly, with every single squad that I unlocked, which mind you was not much, I think it was like 3 of them. At first, it was nearly impossible, and I was like, "Cool, I'm not playing this anymore." And I'd go and I'd sleep, and I'd come back and I'd start playing, and I'd finish a run in one go.
Yeah,
I'd internalize all of the mechanics and essentially be solving Into the Breach puzzles in my sleep. And then when I'd wake up, I'd load it back up, and I would be ready to take on the Vec, ready to take down these aliens. And so, yeah, the Zenith Guard, they've got a mech that shoots like a straight beam across a whole plane and demolishes anything within it. It's got a little one that is like a charge machine that bumps things around, and it's got another that just shoots shields. So you can shield up either the cities or the power plants or whatever it is that's a target that you need to defend, or your own mech that's about to be hit. So yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. I also felt like the Zenith Guard was the first time that I really had to seriously consider sequencing of what mech I was going to move in what order. So that way I didn't put the charge guy in the line of fire. And at the same time, that I could use the charge guy to knock them in line with 3 other Vec and knock them all out with one big beam.
I would also say that my favorites were the Rift Walkers. Sorry, were the Zenith Guard as well. And like you said, it's that really fun. And then even one of your mechs is flying, which then has like implications as to where you can put them. There are mountains and there are water where like if one of your units is in the water, can he attack? Whereas this defense mech, like he's floating the whole time, so you can use him in different ways. So, I only beat the game once, and I beat it with the Rift Walkers, which are like the basic unit, and that's kind of how I learned to play the game. And I think I played a couple other runs with the Zenith Guard, and I got pretty close to a two island victory with the Zenith Guard, but I have only beaten the game with the Rift Walkers. And Travis, you're gonna laugh at me. I don't know if you know your top score at all, but my top score was only 93.54.
That's like the amount of people saved. Is that that's yeah. So I've only played on normal, like my top score, and I've mostly like 4 island normals. 19,466.
Yep.
So that was my that was the one with the hazardous mechs, and it blew up and stuff like that.
I think the most that I've saved is the first run that I did, which was 85.94.
Yeah.
And that took me almost 2 hours.
Yeah, and like
wow.
You were saying, Jacob, about how like the Rift Walkers, like they have the like they give you the basics of how to play the game, and then like and Mike said, like the Zenith kind of teaches you about positioning, right? It's like every single new squad that you unlock gives you just a little bit more difficulty in how you have to think about what you're doing. So like another squad that I really like, I think Blitzkrieg. I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah, the guy with the electric whips.
That's the thing. You have to think about positioning with that one because those electric whips cause chain reactions, and they link through your own enemies, the enemies and your own mechs. So you have to be careful about where you're positioning things. And
cool.
It has a boulder. There's a boulder mech that shoots boulders. It literally just like launches the boulder. So you can, let's say you have some enemies in one section and then some enemies in another. If you can position a boulder between them and then electric whip it, you can connect that stream of electricity through the boulder. So you're being strategic about the placement of the boulder.
That's so smart.
With the enemies and stuff, right? So you're constantly thinking like, where can I move this? Where could I put this?
Cool.
That's the thing. There's so many things that if you just keep playing with the game, you see all these different things that you can play with that give you replayability, right?
I've primarily used the boulder guy to block incoming Vec.
Right. It's useful for that, right?
Yeah. Like I would put him on, or would, that mech on a hole where Vec's about to pop up, and I'd throw a boulder on one of the holes. And a lot of what I prioritized was like Vec management.
Right.
Like how can I prevent more Vec from being here more than I focused on like eliminating the ones that I had. Mm-hmm. And I found that ended up in a lot of instances where I was able to clean up all the other Vec on the second turn and then have a couple turns with just no Vec in sight.
Yeah.
Basically I've cleaned up a 5-turn round by round 2 or 3.
Yeah, when you're done and you have like 2 rounds at the end of the match and you're just like, next, and you're not doing anything because everyone's just standing there and healing over holes that are coming up off the ground.
You don't want to use your turn? Yeah, I'm sure. Let's go. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Did either of you try the Rustling Hulks? Because I tried that squad and they just were not for me at all.
They're difficult because you have one that makes smoke storms. So you have one. So every time there's smoke, it becomes like a thunderstorm, and the electricity hurts the Vec. But you also get blocked vision when you're inside of smoke. So you have to position yourself strategically around those smoke. But you can stop a lot of Vec from attacking. But you also don't want to end up getting, let's say, webbed by one of the Vec that hold you in place while in a smoke storm. Because then you can't get yourself out. You have to rely on a different mech to get you out because you can't see or do anything when you're in the smoke storm. So those ones are tough. But I do like the plane on that one that kind of like jumps around and shoots 2 little cloud storms, and it's easy.
Yep.
And depending on who you have as your pilot, your pilot is if you have a lot of pilots unlocked, and you can. I think her name is Camilla or something like that. And she has, she's immune to webbing and to blindness. So if you have her in that Rusting Hulks set, she can kind of move around and attack in the smoke storms without having to worry about that kind of stuff. So if you strategically place your pilots, it's useful.
I have to ask, did you customize your main pilot at all? Like, did you change their name? Did you do anything? No,
I didn't. No.
Okay.
I liked the pilots.
I did.
Oh yeah,
because my main guy, I'm blanking on what his original name was. But he looked like Abraham Lincoln had gotten a time machine and went back to pilot these mechs.
Ralph Carlson.
That's it. And I renamed him Babraham Lincoln.
Oh my god.
And which was short form for Babe Lincoln. So he was a mean time cop, let me tell you. He was bouncing through time, killing all the Vec. He was pretty hardcore. Usually in a lot of these like tactics games, I like to name all of the pilots or characters after my friends, and then get mad at my friends when they let me down and die. It also just forms really like fun little stories that you can tell your friends, like, hey, I was playing this game and you really let me down because this happened, and thankfully our other friend was there to bail you out. But anyways, yeah, stay true to form. Nice. It was great. I really enjoyed that little touch of customizability.
I literally just want to play through XCOM 2 because I played maybe 10 or 12 hours of XCOM 2, got into a point where I was stuck and like could not advance in the game, and I like to also name a lot of my characters, but just in the XCOM series. So
that's funny.
Let us know in the Discord if you're a person who likes to change the name of your default tactics fighters, because we'd love to know. Any other mech sets you want to talk about, Travis? Because you've touched them all. Mike and I have maybe only touched about half of them.
Not really. I think my least used one was the steel whatever that is. That one. There's a lot of movement. It's positioning and movement and stuff. But it is fun to do like random squad or like custom squad where you're like 3 of the same thing just for fun. Where you're like, I'll have 3 boulder mechs and just shoot boulders everywhere. Like, why not? Or like really give yourself a challenge and do like 3 ice mechs that just like freeze everything, but you also freeze yourself. So it's difficult. It's just setting yourself up for different challenges, right? But no, the ones that I talked about already are the ones that I like the most, I think.
The pilots basically give you bonuses depending on which ones you have. I know that Babe Lincoln, for example, has the ability to give extra XP, which comes into play. But are there any other notable pilots, Travis?
So yeah, like your different pilots or different time travelers, they all have at least one specific skill or use that they can do. You have your generic pilots that join you in every timeline. So yeah, I guess we didn't really touch upon the whole concept.
The timeline
thing. It's a really smart way to kind of introduce those roguelike elements where you're just using time travel to kind of state why you're going back and playing this game again. Essentially, once you save a timeline from the VEC, you leave and you go back into the time stream and you pop up in another world, and you have to save that world as well from the VEC, right? And so these pilots that are specific, they're special ones that you can unlock along the way. They have different abilities, different there's little backstories, like, so you can, if you pay attention to their little talking. Sometimes they'll say certain things when you equip them, or when they make an attack, or they might comment about something that's happening on the map. There's actually like, and Mike kind of talked about this, is like making up your own stories for when your characters are, you name them your characters. There's a lot of like lore built into this game that you wouldn't know otherwise. And so these pilots all have stories and all have personalities and all have interesting things about them, but no one really knows these things unless you've gone and like looked for them outside of the game. In terms of pilots specifically, the ones I really like, Bethany Jones, she starts every round with a shield. So so you always have a shield. So especially useful for when you have a mech that hurts itself to do an attack. It uses the shield instead of using the damage. Ghana is a robot mech. It's a robot because there's also sentient AI in this world. Yep. This game just ticks all of my interest boxes, whether it's sentient AI or time travel or whatever. But yeah, so you can start him anywhere on the map. So normally you're restricted to where you place your starting mechs at the beginning before you start the round. He can go anywhere. And then also there's Prospero, who is also a sentient AI. He just adds flying, but I don't really care about that. The thing I like the most about him is that everything he says is in relation to like the garden and gardening puns. And he's pretty much
really?
There's a VEC infestation here. I got to clean this up. So apparently he was a gardening like mech designed to like just do gardening. And when the VEC appeared, he was like, his programming was like, I've got to like get rid of this infestation of these insects because they're ruining my garden. And that's literally the whole reason why he's fighting.
When he wins, he says, I shall tend to these island gardens as before until the VEC are
There's
no
just
more.
so many little puns. The writing is really good. And so there's an interesting article that I found on, I think it was Rock, Paper, Shotgun. And it is with the writer of the story of this game, Chris Avallone. He goes into detail about all of the backstory that he was introducing for all of these characters, right? So the story, there's not much of a story here. You're pretty much here to save the world, and that's it. But all of these characters have more depth, and if you actually read all of these little pop-up blurbs of their conversations, it hints to more than what you would actually assume, which is interesting. It's like just a hint of story and just a hint of lore that I'm super into. So I've definitely read all of the stuff online that I can find.
You really have spent 150 hours in this game.
Have.
That article is from Rock, Paper, Shotgun. It's called Chris Avallone Sheds Light onto Into the Breach's Time Travel Mysteries by Alec Muir. We'll put it in the description if you want to read it.
Yeah, it's fun.
And Chris Avallone's written like some big games. Like he wrote Neverwinter Nights. He wrote Fallout New Vegas.
Yep.
Prey. He's doing the new System Shock. He wrote Fallen Order. So like, got credits.
There's a lot of stuff that he seems to have written for this game that really isn't in the game. It's just there to kind of build character, and I think that's why I like the world that it's set in. It's just, it feels lived in. It feels like the characters are fleshed out, even though we don't see it.
He was also involved in the Outer Wilds.
Oh, cool.
I think.
Interesting.
Anyways, he definitely loves those like kind of neo-apocalyptic. There's no good choice, or you have to make an impossible choice. Yeah. There's no like good path for him.
He was also a writer on FTL. I don't know if you remember, like there was some flavor text in the menus and stuff of that game too. So Two more things I want to talk about here. I just want to know if you have any like super memorable runs that you made, because I know that for me, my big run for the Volcanic Hive was incredibly memorable because final level, you essentially have to really defend yourself from like a lot of Vec that are coming at you. And I just know that I essentially let all but one of my mechs die. And that one mech was just kind of making his way around the level with, few turns to go, just trying to save himself. Because the Volcanic Hive, the final level, is a multi-level stage that was actually really surprising to go through the first time. That's the thing I remember, is like how high pressure that Volcanic Hive multi-level map was. Travis, I don't know if you have any other like super memorable moments.
And like, I think that's the thing. This game does really a good job of making you feel like there's high pressure, especially with that volcanic level. It's there's so much you don't expect that you're going to suddenly drop below the surface and you're inside of the Vex hive, right? One of the things that I do love about the second phase of that final level is typically you fall to the ground. And in that final level, you have to protect a Renfield bomb, which is a bomb that is set to go off in 5 turns, and it'll destroy all the Vec on this planet, and you save, and that's how you win the game. And normally there's Vec already stationed in the level below when you start. And you can probably find a video of this online if you haven't seen it in the game. But sometimes where your mechs land will be right next to a Vec enemy. And you'll just sit there, and the Vec enemy is just sitting there. And then, the characters kind of do their talking, and they're like, we can't beat this thing alone. And then Jessica Kern, the corporate leader of the one island, she's like, we're sending you a Renfield bomb. And the bomb drops, and it lands right on a Vec. And it just, like, it literally kills a Vec for you, like, immediately. It's actually really funny, and it's shocking the first time you see it. It's actually quite hilarious. And then, but it's just, I think the pressure that builds up. Because the one thing we really didn't touch upon is the music. I love the music in this game, and I think it does a good job of being like perfect for puzzle games in that like it's just subtle enough that you're like it's just easy listening, but it does have this like ramp, like it ramps up a little bit, and it's, I don't know what it is about the music, but it gets stuck in my head, and it's just used really effectively. It only starts once you start a mission. It's kind of quiet when you're outside of a mission. It's just used really interestingly. And I like the way that, especially in that final mission, how it kind of ramps up and you feel the pressure of making the right move at the final moment, right?
You know what it did for me? It did the same thing, and you're going to laugh, that you remember the old Who Wants to Be a Millionaire game show on Regis Philbin?
Yeah.
It did the literal same thing for me.
Yes.
It just like, it calms you and it gets you in the zone, but at the same time, like, it doesn't occupy more space than it needs to. It's not excessive.
It's, it's subtle enough, but it's really effective at building that atmosphere for you, right? Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any more runs that I can think of that I loved that run that I had where the bomb, I had my little, bomb that kept going off. I'm trying to think of any other specific ones that I've enjoyed.
How many times have you beaten the game?
I wouldn't even be able to tell you. Honestly, I beat the game more often than I don't. I don't.
Wow.
Like,
That's
in
amazing.
all of the time that I play it, I very rarely lose a timeline. So, like, I've beaten if you think about it, I've beaten the achievement. I've gotten all the achievements, and to do that too, you need to beat a 2-island run, a 3-island run, and a 4-island run with every single mech combination and squad. So I've done that at least. And that's the thing, it also ramps up in difficulty. The more islands that you do, the more difficult bosses, the more health they have, because you also have more equipment and more power grid and all that kind of stuff. But I wish I knew exactly how much I've beaten, how many wins I've had. I probably could grab my Switch and tell you if you give me a second.
I mean, I can also go and look at your...
Oh, you can?
Like your list for Into the Breach, yeah. So you've played on Switch more than 75 hours.
Yeah.
So, damn.
And my Steam account is somewhere around 50, I believe. I think, yeah. That's the thing. So I win often, but I probably could give myself a challenge by playing on hard. You have to beat the game at least once on hard in order to get all the achievements, and I've only done it once. Because it definitely ramps up the difficulty, and I probably could do that at this point, but I think I've maximized my amounts of with normal, and I don't usually lose anymore, which is kind of nice. Like sometimes I just kind of plow through like a whole 4-thing island in like a half an hour, and I'm like, okay, I'm done, and then like it just moves really fast.
Another question from Adam Gumbert here, and again, I feel like these questions are specifically for you, Travis.
Oh
God. But yes, Mike as well. Best crossover you can imagine with Into the Breach. He lists Power Rangers and Pacific Rim as two examples of crossovers. Travis, I know you're a big fan of the Power Rangers and the comic books.
I never even thought of that. If you were to give me like a Power Rangers like skin layover thing on this game, I would lose my... Oh my God.
Pacific Rim would be good.
Did you know there is
sure.
one?
But I honestly, after playing Hades, I would be down for like Greek gods. You know?
Oh.
Give me some Greek or Egyptian or Roman gods. I'm down.
Yeah, I could see that, because then like you just change up your mechs to just be like giant gods that are walking around, right?
Zeus is the chain lightning guy. You know what I mean?
That.
Like,
yeah.
They each have their own little environmental effect as well.
Oh my
and
God.
You can group them up by like familial relation as well.
Travis, did you know that there's like a Power Rangers-esque tactical RPG?
No.
It's called Chroma Squad.
Okay.
It came out like 6 or 7 years ago, and it is very much like stunt actors who quit their TV job, or quit their jobs to do a Power Rangers TV show.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna have to look into this.
RPG.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't know. I just really want Advance Wars 1+2 to come out because it's in like date purgatory, because one of the characters or one of the enemies is essentially the USSR. So given the current world conflict, they don't want to put that game out. But that's just what I want. I don't want another game. I just want Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp.
I was just going to say, could you do a Neon Genesis Evangelion version of this? Where
you could.
You fight as... What are they, the angels instead?
I thought you were going to say where Shinji is depressed.
Literally, Shinji just gives you like negative points on all of your things every single time.
Yes, there's a cry out for Misato button in the game. Misato!
Yes, you could do that too. Because if we're talking about giant mech, things fighting aliens, I think you could probably make that happen with this game too.
Okay, well, there you go. We want, out of the 3 things that were named, we want the Neon Genesis Evangelion Into the Breach pack. What does Subset do next? I mean, they made 2 perfect games, so...
I have no idea.
I would have never... I don't think I would have expected this as their next thing after FTL. Mm-hmm. I don't think I could accurately expect what their next thing will be. Only to say that it will likely be a roguelike. That's about all I can bank on. They'll find a new way to innovate in the roguelike genre, I'm sure.
And I mean, it was 6 years between FTL and Into the Breach, so we're at about 4 years now. So maybe next year we'll get first mention of what the team's working on next. Any other things y'all want to talk about with respect to Into the Breach?
No, legit I've talked a lot, and but also I just love this game so much. It becomes an obsession when I pick it up and I keep playing it over and over and over again. It's something that I've just put so much time into, and it's perfect. It's legitimately perfect. I don't know if I can put into words just how perfect it is. It is everything that I want in a tactics game. It takes out all of the guesswork. Literally the only chance thing that happens in this game is the chance that you may survive damage against a building.
I'm so glad we had you come be on this episode, Travis, honestly, because you can speak to the real depths of this game.
I just
and
love it so much.
all the infinite replayability that it has within.
Yeah. That's the thing.
Mike and I are like, good game.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
and you're like, this
game.
is the best game. This
Best
game is
game
perfect.
Ever. Please,
this is the
buy
platonic
this game.
ideal of a game.
Yeah, it's perfect. If you want my fast pitch, it is Travis's perfect game. Done. Fast pitch.
Done. You can't top that.
No.
On that note, I think we should probably wrap.
Yep. If you want to make Travis smile, buy a copy of Into the Breach for someone. You can find all things Left Behind Game Club at leftbehindgame.club, on Twitter at leftbehindclub, on Instagram at leftbehindgameclub, and in our Discord. There's a lot of fun people in there who love talking about video games, so check that out, leftbehindgame.club/discord. Travis, thank you so much for coming back on the show to talk about your perfect game. I guess you don't have to come on the show anymore because you've talked about the perfect game now. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. I hope, good success for the pod in the future.
Good luck. Happy days.
Have a nice life. Thank you.
I'll talk to you.
It was nice knowing you.
Where can people find you and the other things you do?
I am on Twitter at Travis Colenutt. I am busy being a new father, so I'm not really on Twitter much. And I also do Cutscenes, video game movie podcast with Jacob and Katie Lesperance, another host of this show. It's a great time. I mean, fingers crossed things settle for me so that I can watch more movies and talk about how bad, more video game related movies, and talk about how good / bad they are. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Most of them are fine.
Some of them are fine.
That's the promo that scarred into my memory. I've listened to that
every time you listen.
Every time I listen. Some of them are fine.
Some of them are fine.
Travis, you'll be back with another tactics game later this year.
I actually will, so this is not my last one.
Mike, where can you be found on the internet?
You can find me at RuffaloM on most social places online, or michaelruffalo.com and .ca. Jacob, where can the fine folks find you at?
Gotta get that branding, baby.
Hashtag branding, baby.
You can find me on the internet at Jacob McCourt, JACOBMCCOURT on all major social media platforms. Twitter is where I do my ranting, and TikTok is where I've been making daily videos for 5 months now.
Nice.
By the time you listen to this. So if you like video games and people who talk about them with the faces, throw me a follow. Thank you. And Mike, what do we say to them?
And that, my friends, is one less game left behind.
Hey, I'm Jacob McCourt.
I'm Katie Lesperance.
And I'm Travis Colenutt.
We are hosting a brand new podcast called Cutscenes.
There are tons of video game podcasts and tons of TV film podcasts, but we're going to bring you the intersection of both and talk about video game, movies, and TV.
I know what you're thinking. Aren't most of them not very good? Wrong. Some of them are fine. And we're going to tell you all about them.
Make sure to subscribe on your podcasting platform of choice. Follow us on Twitter at cutscenes_pod. And most importantly, give us a listen.
See you soon.
Cutscenes, a video game movie podcast.